October 16, 2025. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. Here's what the chart looked like today. In the pre-market, there was kind of a bounce up, kind of a carryover from yesterday. Bounce up, hit a sideways consolidation, which I thought was a trading range at the time. Then it sold off, and kind of a bunch of choppy legs that I didn't really quite manage to fit inside a channel. So I just kind of treated it as little piecemeal stair step moves. A couple legs up, sideways, another sell off, and kind of move into the close. So I've kind of changed how I'm reviewing the charts because I noticed just looking back at my previous charts, previous videos, I was kind of, I think, just identifying a whole bunch of stuff, whether they were almost trades or actual trades. So to make things a little more clear for myself in my notes, especially when I have to go back and look at it and reread and look at what I'm doing, I decided to just really mark actual trades that I think were good trades that I should have taken, and then probably mark the one trade with asterisks that I thought was kind of the setup of the day, like the one that was met all the requirements, was probably the best trade that was available. And then all the other ones, if I had a hunch or even if they look slightly not perfect, I wouldn't really call it a possible trade. It's just kind of dial in my discipline and make sure that I'm a little bit more picky so I don't take a bunch of lower probability trades. But I imagine with more experience and more chart time, I should be able to identify more of those sketchy trades as actually good trades because my experience is better and I've seen more what the price action would actually do. So I'm going to get into the charts right now. I actually took no trades today, and that was on purpose because I just kind of think I needed a mental reset to realign myself and start seeing things a little bit more clearly. So try to have no FOMO and decide to take no trades today. There was no economic data to really be concerned about, so I'm just going to get into the trades right now, or the setups that I saw. It was quite a busy day, quite a few setups, and a lot of choppy price action. Well, a lot of, I guess I would call it almost setups. So the pre-market looks like it was moving up this yellow up channel, break, test the high, kind of moves down. It creates a setup, but not a trade, in my opinion, or at least not a trade that I'm comfortable with. What I used to call them almost setups. Push on this green down channel. It had a small break depending on how you drew it. It's actually slightly drifted since then, a little bit closer to something like that. Now you could have had it tighter, break, and a move down. When the price action actually moves down quite a bit and it looks like it's two legs, I try to encapsulate all the price action into one leg, anticipating a second leg down, but there is two legs inside of here. Move sideways, there is actually a new low here. It's a first entry short, pull back, second entry short. Second entry short, it's pretty early in the day. There is enough room to the lows. I just wasn't that excited about calling this actual trade. The EMA isn't really helpful. And another thing about the EMA is I've noticed in my previous, well, in a lot of my videos and I just in my learning process, I've given the EMA sometimes a little more respect than it needs, and sometimes a little less respect. So I just need to be careful depending on if it's a trending price action or if it's a trading range. If it's a trading range, the EMA doesn't quite matter as much. But if it's trending, then the EMA is actually quite important, especially if you see multiple rejections off of it. With that in mind, if it's a little ambiguous because this trend is very short, then it moves sideways, and you could just tell from the rest of the day, it's just, or what you see on screen is just kind of moves sideways before it actually trends anywhere. And this is just very choppy noise. So I just have to be very careful when I see things such as that to be aware of whether the EMA is something I need to be super careful of or just price action is going to be strong enough to either push one way through it or the other. So it creates a localized low. Break of the screen down channels, tested the low. It looks like it's in a sideways consolidation here. Technically, if a new low, first entry short, second entry short, account resets, but then it hits this. And I thought this right here was a possible setup. Go ahead and zoom in a little bit. So if you do the count reset, it's actually a first entry short, second entry short, but more importantly, it creates a triple test. So whether you counted this as the first attempt or not, It looks like it was a second attempt here and then at least another third attempt here and a push down. So this is a decent signal bar because it's also two small legs up, decent signal bar, and the resulting follow-through bar, the trigger bar, encapsulates and engulfs this completely. So I thought this is a possible trade, and if I wanted to try to take it, I'd probably put a limit order right below the original signal bar. And if I did, in this case, it would have worked because I wouldn't want to put it at the low after the close of this guy, just because if it's truly in a trading range, I don't want to be selling into this potential bounce point because there isn't quite that much room there. Then prices break down, pushes back up on this green up channel, overshoot on the high side, pushes back down the orange, break, test the low. Orange has drifted slightly. Test the low, kind of consolidates here. I was debating whether the trading range was a little bit higher right here. Has better touches, third touch confirmation, but no real setup. Or was it slightly lower? I later adjusted it to be slightly lower. It moves up in multiple legs, so not clean or clear what to do. Pushes down, first entry long, pull back. Technically, I have a second entry long, but just looking at the price action previously, it is congested, so leaving that alone. Pushes down, it bounces off this, what I think is the low of the range again. Pushes up, unfortunately, there's no setup again. Technically, a localized high. First entry long pullback, second entry long also creates a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I called this, well, I didn't really consider this a actual possible trade, so it's what I call an almost trade, just because it is selling into the low of this potential support area. And after the formation of this bar and it continues downward, so it would have worked, but you don't know that at the time. I actually dragged this down slightly because it had better confirmation, better touches right here. But it still didn't change the fact that at the time, this doesn't look like a safe trade. Pushes down and it actually creates what it looks like a visual first entry long pullback, second entry long. Now there's no real higher low here, especially the higher low. If you counted this as a higher low, it's inside this bar. But there's also a new low. This is drifted. Create a first entry short, pullback, second entry short failure. But I also thought at the time I was in a trading range, so I had to leave that one alone. Prices move up, spike up into another range, and then another push out. So localized new high, it's a first entry long pullback, creates a second entry long. This is actually because I thought at the time maybe the trading range low was here, almost touched, but it's not a good second entry long because right after this signal bar, the subsequent trigger bar never breaks above here. And when this, so if you had a order ready and this bar closes, I would have canceled it. And then when this bar finally shows up, it's a little too late. So the trade didn't execute on this one. So it's not, in my opinion, safe to just wait around hoping the next couple of bars kind of pick you up on a setup that's a little, in my opinion, a little more mediocre. If it was off of a few more key entry points, then yes, you might wait through a second bar. Prices move up on this orange up channel. Not sure why NinjaTrader keeps messing up or causing my channels to drift. Pushes up, breaks to the high. You have a failed breakout in the high side, pushes down, a first entry long pullback. You technically have a second entry long here, but it's a bad signal bar. And then you're looking for a higher low. The higher low kind of shows up here, but you don't know that it's a higher low that's, well, actually it's lower than everybody else, but you don't know that it's a possible anything until a few more bars later. But I marked it because at the time I was thinking, is there something setting up here? But of course you don't know at the time, and by the time it confirms, the trade's already been done. In which case, it kind of goes back to the fact that there really was no trade there because you don't want to be guessing on something that's a little bit vague. Prices move, and I'm thinking I'm in this potential trading range. There's some kind of support being respected here. Breaks out, failed breakout, pushes up, creates a second entry short. So it's a new low here. It's a first entry short pullback. You have a second entry short as soon as it broke below this guy, but I didn't really like the second entry short. I wanted a lower high, and I actually thought, didn't mean to grab that handle. I actually thought this is a viable lower high. Although it makes a double top, you do have clearly a first entry short pullback, second entry short, potential triple test, one touch, two touch, kind of three touch. Yes, it broke above, but it's a break of the green up channel, test the high once, test the high a second time. Clearly some kind of resistance here. I like that this candle, the signal bar for the lower high, moved above, couldn't break above the previous, and then closed, engulfed this guy. So I thought there might have been a possible trade here. Pushes down, so it would have been good enough for a 1, even 2-point scalp. Prices then move up, hits this resistance again, and starts flushing back down. You actually have a break above, so this would actually be, on a technical count, your first entry long. Your second entry long would be here, but it's a little dangerous, in my opinion, to try to go long on this clear move down. Prices break, pushes to the low, pushes back up, first entry short. You technically might have a second entry short, but you're also, depending on where you had your trading range drawn, either here or slightly above or slightly lower, you're in a potential support area. This could be a failed breakout and a move back into range, but I need a little more price action to confirm. I was actually looking for a higher low. So it is a first entry short, confirmed second entry short. It seems to be bouncing off the EMA, which really isn't that reliable at the moment. Pushes up, so now you have a failed second entry short. Of course, I don't think it was a safe trade to have taken because the orange up channel has tested the high now. So there's less strength and less reason for it to push again to the high, except for the fact that it might be pushing into this range. So actually now I'm looking for a first entry short, second entry short, a higher low than I thought it might have been a good trade. So it might have a higher low here, potential higher low, except it flushes through. So this is a no trade area now. Pushes down, breaks. Technically, it's from localized high, it's a first entry long, pullback. You have a second entry long here, but just by the technical count, it's a second entry long, but it doesn't really have good context. Prices move sideways, just gets a little noisy, localized new low, first entry short, pullback, potential second entry short. Now, I didn't really have this drawn as a range yet because my range, I only had the support area established, thinking there might be some kind of support here because it looked like it was reacting slightly above where the current line is, but I didn't know where the rejection area at the high side might be. So it does have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Good signal bar for the second entry short. Break of the orange up channel has tested the high, except the follow through wasn't very convincing. So in order for you to go short, or in order for me to want to go short, is I need to see a lower high inside the range. And unfortunately, you get a lower high here, but now it's too close to the bottom area because this is where I have my line, but I treat it as a kind of a zone unless it's very defined. So it could actually be here or slightly above here. So I treat it as a danger zone, which is down. It would have worked. It's a localized low, creates this new low, first entry short pullback, second entry short, new high. This is first entry long here, but I also saw it as a visual first entry long pullback, second entry long failure. But when you see this in real time, it's hard to anticipate this candle is going to happen. And so unless you took it on the engulfing, you would definitely not take it at the low because it matched the low here. And if you did, you'd just be kind of chasing momentum. So I called it, again, an almost trade. Pushes down. So if you did enter, you'd be in this candle and probably be a little concerned, even though the EMA is starting to move down. And finally here, depending on how many points you're going after, you might get filled. And you had a second chance here, but if you're going for something super aggressive, which isn't recommended when you're already hitting the low of day, you likely would have gotten stopped out on this candle. There's a first entry short pullback, second entry short bad signal bar, lower high here, but EMA, it's kind of adding some ambiguity. Kind of moves sideways. Possible trading range, maybe a triple test here, but I'm not the biggest fan of this setup right now because it looks like one leg up pullback, potentially a second leg up, maybe a triple test, but EMA is right here, so there might be enough room to the lows, but I just really didn't like this. Pushes down and through, normalize the chart. Starts reversing up. You technically have a first entry short, pullback. You have a second entry short, but it's not the cleanest. This is actually where it sets up what I call the setup of the day. And I thought this is actually probably the best trade that I was able to identify for today. So you have a break, you have a push down of this orange down channel. You have a first entry short, pullback, second entry short. You have a new high, localized, first entry long, pullback, second entry long. Second entry long looks like it's about to fail. You also have this localized resistance area that try to push up once, try to push up twice, try to push up a third time. This has since drifted slightly. There is a potential trend line resistance in play. I like that this trade, after the break of this, made 2 attempts up. It's telling me, look, it looks like a first entry short, second entry short, potentially a lower high, or you could say it's a visual first entry short, visual second entry short, but more likely I count a first entry, second entry, lower high, decent signal bar, strong enough to push down. Red down channel needs to test the low. In context, prices seem to be drifting down at the moment. So I thought this was actually a decent trade. Flushes down. I wouldn't have taken it if I wouldn't take it after the close of this guy. So I would have tried to take it right here, right one tick below here. Pushes down, creates a second entry short here. First entry short pullback, second entry short. It's kind of far from the EMA. No matter how I drew it, unless I cut through this bar, I couldn't quite get a touch here. Pushes down. So now it has a second touch confirmation. I turned this trend line into an actual colored in channel. First entry short, and just keeps going down. It's a breakout here. First entry short. This red line doesn't exist yet, so I can't use this as a key entry point. It was drawn much later after the fact. It's actually after I drew, so I actually didn't have this trend line drawn yet either. It was much later. I drew this in and I just copied it, pasted it down here, but it isn't a true channel I gave much respect to, because you could already tell the bias is going short, but you don't really, the channel itself isn't actually, this big red one isn't actually helping as a key entry point for anything. Breaks, you have a first entry long, you also have a first entry short. Technically you have a second entry short, but it's just congested. Also, we have a first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long by the counts here, but again, it's just congested. Prices start moving. Looks like it's moving sideways. Breaks to the low. Fail breakout on this side. Potential fail breakout on this side. First entry long. Pushes down. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but it looks like it's one leg pullback, second leg, even though there's a small break above. There might be a possible second entry long here with a bounce off of this potential support area. With a move, I'm thinking back up to the high of this range. But it pushes up and flushes down. So the only thing that would have stopped or give you any indication of not to take this trade is, even though it has a good signal bar, it never broke above this guy. So actually, the first entry long pullback, second entry long, you're looking for a break above here. But this orange down channel does need to test its low. So I honestly don't know if I was trying to take this trade, I might have gotten trapped thinking it's going to push back up. And the thing that would have potentially stopped me is the overall bias is going down and it's in range. But I think, to be honest, I think I probably would have gotten trapped, gotten entered here and gotten stopped out here, because everything looks like it's moving back up to the high side. The fail breakout pushes out, first entry short. I'm looking for another fail breakout on this side. Second entry short pushes down. Now I'm actually looking for a lower high with a rejection off this top of the range. It looks like it could happen here, except it's not the right colored signal bar. The follow through is inside of this, so I didn't like that. Then the follow through for that doesn't look that good. So it was a new high, first entry long pullback, confirmed second entry long. This is also a higher low because you could say it's from here, first entry short, pullback, second entry short, higher low. So the thing I didn't like about it was it might be buying into the top of this range. Prices then move up. Looks like it might be one measured leg pullback, potential second measured leg. It's starting to stall. It almost touches it, but might be good enough to be considered 2 legs up. Pushes down. Looks like it's a correction. Technically, you have a first entry long, but I group this as a visual first entry long. Break of this orange is going to test the low, which it's doing now. Potential second entry long, but it's below the EMA. Just a little ambiguous. I'm looking for a higher low confirmation to feel safer. Might be a higher low, but it's the wrong signal bar color. Pushes down. Now it's broken down through. So technically, if this is a higher low and prices are going to reverse up, it's not really a higher low because it's actually lower than everybody else. Pushes up strongly. You might consider this as the higher low, but I didn't like it as a doji. Gets sideways choppy, moves up one leg, looks like it was consolidating, expecting a second leg up. Doesn't quite do it. It's a new high, localized, first entry long, pullback, second entry long, not a good signal bar, pushes up and through. So when it actually printed here, that's where I drew this trend line. And I tried really hard to see if this could be captured by anything. So I had this at one time, but then it doesn't seem valid because there's a lot of empty space here. It broke out. Prices are clearly not respecting this at all. It maybe did it earlier, but it wasn't really anything. So then I drew it down to here. It doesn't quite fit right, and I finally ended up putting it right here. But for all intents, it's not really helpful as a key entry point. If prices get back up to here, I'd be very reluctant to treat it as a key entry point, as a basis of a good trade. If it just happened to coincide with anything else that's setting up, then yes, you could use it and throw another thing into the reason pile of why you should take a short. But on its own, it's not strong enough as a key entry point, at least in my opinion, especially on the low side as well. So then prices move down, breaks, first entry long pullback, second entry long, not a good signal bar. It's also new low, first entry short, second entry short. EMA is a little bit unreliable because you have prices above and below. EMA was a little bit more reliable here, not reliable here, semi-reliable here, but then right here, not reliable again. Because even though it is trending down, it's taking a lot of side detours and a lot of sideways consolidations. So kind of makes you just extra careful. Pushes up, confirms this trend line. So the trend line is looking pretty good. But I am noticing that it's making higher lows every time. So my guess is this trend line might not be a very strong resistance. It could break out at any time because it's just showing strength as it moves up. Pushes back down. This is sideways consolidation again. Technically, you have a new low. First entry short, pullback, second entry short at the top here. Almost a triple test unless you drew it slightly lower and had this as one of your touches. But I counted it as really only one touch, maybe a second touch. So not quite a triple test. And the low side was a little higher, about right here. So it looks like in range. So after the second entry shorts confirm, there's no trade here. I wouldn't take a trade after the close because there's no room here. I also wouldn't put an entry one tick above, one tick below here to try to get a better entry because if the next candle does open, you're asking for it to move all the way up to your entry so that you can go short. Then you're asking for prices to continue to move back down. So you're asking for a big like ricochet, asking for it to come up, pick you up, and then push back down. When something like that happens, I'm reluctant because the trade itself has already been made. If you weren't in on the trade after this signal bar and just, trusted the strength of the EMA, then it's something to just skip completely. Prices move down, kind of chop sideways, potential fail breakout, visual first entry short, pullback, second entry short, but it's also technical first entry short, second entry short. Could have been a lower high here, but it's just a little bit not super clear. Prices move down on this orange down channel. I actually had it drawn a little tighter and I expanded it since then. So I actually had this orange channel tighter like this initially, broke, made two attempts at the low, sideways consolidation, continue moving down. That's when I expanded it to something closer to this. And it ended up fitting a little bit better because it fit the low side better. Even though uh, the first touch is way down here, and you kind of negate all this, it kind of looked like it fit better. Pushes down, break of this orange up channel. Looks like it's two legs up. It's also a visual, change the cursor. First entry short, pullback. You have a second entry short. I'm looking for a lower high because I'm expecting a test of this orange down channel low. And unfortunately, you get your lower high maybe right here, but it's too close to the lows now. And the push down has already moved pretty much more than half the size of this. Pushes back up. First entry, so localized low. First entry short, pullback. Second entry short. Looks like there might be a lower high here, But it also looks like if you did the count reset, it looks more likely a first entry short, pullback, second entry short, and the lower high here. A so-so signal bar, EMA might be in play, or it might not. In this case, it would have worked. Pushes down, break of the green down channel, test the low, first entry short, kind of hits this support consolidation area. Fail break it on this side. First entry short, pullback, second entry short. This isn't a good signal bar though, so I was leaving it alone. Looks like it's reversing, testing the high. I'm expecting a potentially symmetrical fail breakout on the high side. Pushes up. No clean second entries. New high. First entry long. You have a second entry long here, but you only get it after it breaks here. I really wanted this candle to close the high. Then it would have been a cleaner and safer first entry long pullback. Small pullback to here, second entry. But since it recovered or sellers came back and pushed it back down, the potential triple test as well. Since it pulled it back down, then I thought there was no trade here. So I wouldn't have had an order here ready. In this case, if you did, you would have gotten it. And depending on how many points you're going after, you might have gotten a quick scalp out here. Too many dojis here, some indecision. I drew this initially tighter here, but I didn't like the push and hold outside. So I actually dragged it. Then it didn't look like a very reliable channel because got an empty space here, and it looks like it's also could be part of a sideways range. Prices kind of keep moving. So localized high, it's a first entry long pullback, second entry long, kind of bouncing off of nothing. It's a localized high, pushes down. Looks like it was a spike and then a more gradual channel because I try to include this high, but it never fit too well. And it looked like price action fit much better in this orange down channel. So I treat it as a spike and a more channel right here. So like a spike and a more, I guess you could say shallow, although it's still quite steep. Break, test the low, pushes back up, first entry long, and it creates a second entry short. So it's a new low, first entry short, pullback, second entry short. But this is kind of late in the day, so I wouldn't have even tried to take this trade. I like that it moved up and then flushed down, engulfed this completely, but it does feel dangerous because right at the close, it's pretty much matching the lows here. You could argue, well, I don't know that you could argue, but the orange down channel is tested the low, broken tested the low, unless you drew it slightly different. You could have had it maybe this way if you try to incorporate the high side. But then it doesn't quite, I mean, you only have really one touch confirmation, as opposed to this looks a little cleaner. Prices then kind of chop, reverses, looks like it was two legs up. First entry long, technically, well, not really a second entry long. It's not that clean. First entry long still. You could say it's a visual first entry short, maybe a second entry short, but it seems, see if I, that it might be in a range, but this isn't even a good signal bar. And prices and the candles themselves are getting a little whippy, which I did notice throughout the day. There was instances where as the candles are printing, they kind of did some herky-jerky movements. They would spike, move quickly, make big candles, then kind of resume a slow and steady pace. So it was a little bit, it was a little confusing, and I'm actually pretty happy that I didn't even try taking any trades today. Just kind of try to sit, try to see what's happening, try to understand what's going on. Prices then continue moving up, breaks through what I thought might have been a valid trend line resistance at the time, but it doesn't really matter because the time of day is too late. It was moving up what I thought might have been this yellow up channel, but there's really no trade set up. Pushes down on this red one. First entry short, technically a second entry short, not the best signal bar. It's too late in the day, there's only a minute left, and it pushes into the close. So Kind of a interesting choppy day. Uh, I noticed for sure my mental capital gets exhausted probably by the halfway point of the day. So I've noticed in a lot of my chart videos, I have more, I guess, better grasp of what's happening earlier in the day, the first half, probably from the open 6:30 Pacific Standard to about maybe 9:30, at most maybe 10:30 Pacific Standard. So that's like half the day. It's also where most of the price action, most of the easy setups, in my opinion, show up. There are more setups after in the second half of the day, except it has been consistently shown, at least what I've observed, that most of the easy trades, most of the stuff happening occurs during the first half of the day. Second half, my mind is also quite tired by then. It's exhausted, it drifts. I'm sloppy for sure. I mean, I can't say that I'm not sloppy up here in front as well, but for sure there's a marked difference between the first half and the second half. So knowing that, I might start changing my routine up to probably focus really intently on the first half, and then the second half I might just take a break, come back maybe in the last hour, do the chart review or review the chart and then proceed forward. Because I think sitting through the next 3 hours or the second half of the day, it's just gonna, I think I'm more prone to making mistakes, getting impulsive, and especially if, and making a lot of bad choices. I was gonna say, especially during the first half, if I don't pick up a trade, I do know I get anxious looking to try to get a trade. And more often than not, if I try to get a trade or I start looking too intently, I start inventing trades. So kind of just some discovery for myself. No trades today on purpose. Just trying to get my mind wrapped around getting, well, getting better and clearing my mind. So hopefully that was helpful.